Welcome to the podcast. My name is Danny Cola. If this is your first time listening, make sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you can join me in having some epic conversations that access higher levels of potential with creatives and professionals from all around the globe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's guest is my friend Sam Gonzalez. Sam is a kettlebell and tactical fitness expert with 13 years of experience with teaching people how to use unconventional tools like the kettlebell, steel mace, steel clubs. I had the honor of working with Sam at my gym, Underground Fitness Studio, and learned so much about some of his philosophies about life, fatherhood, and living with purpose. Exercise and coaching exercise is a huge passion of mine, and I always look to evolve my understanding every single day. And working with Sam on a daily basis allowed for me to level up as a fitness professional, a business owner, and a family man. In this podcast, we discuss the hero's path, a lifelong journey of growth, development, and service to others. We also discuss some hot topics like global government control, the toxicity of corporate environments, and taking your sovereignty back. Working with Sam was a great time. He's like my soul brother. I wish we worked together for a longer period of time, but he is now residing in Jacksonville, Florida, where he enjoys beach time and is doing a small group and one-on-one training at a private facility out there in Jacksonville. And he also is now programming for people online as well. You can follow Sam on Instagram at the Kettlebell Kickstart. So without further ado, here's the podcast, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Fucking cheers, dude.
Cheers.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Hey, listen, I've been doing podcasts since 2017. I started. I was just like, I got my first teaching job, and I was like, okay, well, I got my dream job or whatever, and I was like, what's the next thing? So I got my dream job. Let's start the next project. And I just started podcasting once a week for 52 straight weeks. And then from there, just serendipitously got into training again while I was in my dream job teaching. Ironically, my teaching job, that was a dream job, went to shit. And then I found myself training again. Yeah. And then I could argue that from the podcast, Underground is here. Just from the people that I was talking to, the things that I started learning about. You know, you listen to more Joe Rogan, you learn about kettlebells, and you're like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I mean, that's how I got into it, to be honest with you. And then I took some time off of it, but cheers.
Cheers.
Dude, happy last day.
Yeah, of course.
What do we got here?
That's a New England IPA hazy style Revolution. Used to be my favorite brewery. Not so much anymore. I prefer...
Chicago brand.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago is definitely known for a lot of their microbreweries. I got into microbrewing maybe in 2011 when I started drinking some of those funky beers that a lot of people don't like that have a lot of hops and all that kind of stuff. But I even actually homebrewed for quite a while. Not super successfully, but a couple of them were really good, but most of them are just trash.
Where do you find the time to homebrew if you're training 12 sessions a day?
Well, that was definitely earlier in my career. I wasn't really doing too much. I didn't have, the obligations and responsibilities that I had before. It was a little bit more fun time, a little bit more watching a lot more sports, more TV, things like that.
When did you feel like you stopped watching sports? I feel like in 2010, 2011, the decline was just like for me. Well, I cared so much about football, then in the end in basketball, the D Rose time, and then after that, I was just like, this is getting.
Yeah, I just feel like sports are, of course, very exciting, but in the end, it's entertainment. So the difference between sports and something like Hollywood I don't really think they're that different because. Essentially, to me, they're kind of distractions. So if I want to watch sports, if I want to watch a game...
Escapism or whatever.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's cool, and we all need that. But I've never really been the person or the guy who's been like, I'm going to watch Monday Night Football, I'm going to watch the noon game, the 3 o'clock game, and then Sunday evening
You've never
football.
been that way, ever?
No, to me, I'd rather have, number one, the idea of me sitting down for 6 hours, 3 hours is a daunting idea. But I've never really been super excited about I have to watch a game. Now, I will say that I like the sport of basketball. And I was definitely on that Bulls train with the Rose and that squad.
I thought they were going to win it. I thought they were going to get LeBron in 2010, and then it just.
I would have stopped watching if they watched LeBron.
Really?
LeBron, no. I don't think that was ever really a thing either. I think that was kind of just floating it out there.
Maybe. But, he knew he was going to Miami all along.
Yeah.
I remember getting really jazzed up about that. I'm like, he's coming to Chicago. I was like so excited. But then it started to derail for me. I do like watching the movement patterns of athletes more than I ever have before. Like, I don't give a shit about who's playing what sport really, or like what players are even on team. I guess I take that back. I do care about like the players because that gets me excited more than just the teams. But now the way I'm watching like athletes move, I'm trying to like make more sense of how can training translate more onto the field. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Like seeing people rotate and catch the ball, rotate and shoot, rotate playing, jumping or blocking or playing defense or whatever. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Doing something skill-based while like your cardio conditioning is being taxed, your physical strain is being taxed. That right now is getting me the most excited about sports.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of had that epiphany a little while ago when I was working with my mentor, John Hines, who is the owner and founder of the Monkey Bar Gym.
You were telling me about that.
Yeah. He is super knowledgeable guy. He's been in the industry for a long time. Was a former trainer for the Clippers. Okay. And what he really relayed to me was that a lot of the models that we use for training for athletes are not necessarily the best. And that's probably the biggest misconception I had as a trainer when you're talking about pro athlete people, even at the college level. I always thought these guys were definitely going to be the smartest people in the room. And that's not always the case.
You mean the players or the coaches?
The coaches, the coaching staff in regards to like the strength and conditioning programs, right?
Yeah.
You would think that after decades of people suffering similar injuries, that they would find mechanisms and techniques and protocols that would at least kind of minimize that a little bit. And what you're seeing is that you're still going into weight rooms and they're still doing power cleans and they're still doing all that stuff. And those are all great and that's fine. But if you're like a basketball player, you got to work on your hopping, you got to work on your lateral movement, you got to be able to pivot, you got to be able to also do that stuff. And sometimes traditional weight training negates that.
100%.
So what I learned from him was that focusing on movement patterns was probably going to be the best option. And that was like revolutionary to me.
Are there specific style of movement patterns that you tend to focus on that are universally transitional, or like what movement patterns are you specifically?
Well, when we talked about when under his mentorship, he talked specifically about essentially just being human, right? So running, jumping, crawling, and climbing. And within those movements, you have a collection of exercises. So running is obviously running, locomotion. Jumping could be jumping, broad jumping, or quick extension of your hips. Climbing is like pulling, right? And crawling is pushing. So in those modalities, or in that style of training, it was essentially almost all body weight. There was a crap ton of calisthenics. So we're doing chin-ups and pull-ups and dips and muscle-ups and flags and pistols and I mean, pretty much anything you could probably think of in terms of bodyweight exercises we were doing, along with locomotion patterns like crawling and other things that we borrowed from martial arts like jiu-jitsu. So we're rolling around on the ground, cartwheels, somersaults.
Yeah, so like human shit.
Yeah, and it was a lot of like play-based stuff, you know? That made it a lot that was very revolutionary because what I was finding out early in my career was, number one, I've always been very busy as a trainer. I think I had the advantage of having an extensive sales background where I was negotiating $1 million deals to have people. I used to be in supply chain management,
right.
So I would go to a company, pitch them our ideas, and we'd negotiate that. So asking somebody for a couple grand was never a big thing for me. But what I was realizing is that when I was really busy all the time, that number one, it was very mundane, and when you first become a trainer and you don't really know any better, you kind of fall into what everyone does. And that's normal. And that works for a lot of people too. But like the stereotypical, I call it amateur bodybuilding.
Yeah. Reps, sets, push, pull.
Yeah, and that's
few
great.
More Mrs. Jones.
Yeah, but what I was realizing was not everyone wants to do that, number one. And it wasn't very engaging. And then essentially, like, what am I supposed to do now? Am I just supposed to change resistance? Or am I just supposed to move the pin to another area and become a rep counter? I'm like, I didn't really want to do it this way. So So focusing on the motions and the movements and trying to apply that to exercise was definitely like a revolutionary idea for me. I mean, the idea that you can turn play into very challenging exercise. And productive and
Fun.
gaining results and fun. I need to find that model. And when I did, it changed everything.
And then you're talking like Monkey Gym was part of the Monkey Bar was part of that, and then obviously getting into the kettlebells and the clubs. Like, how long were you doing the Monkey Bar bodyweight stuff before you started finding out about clubs and you're like, oh shit?
So like for 4 years, I was instructor and coach over there, designing the programs.
Can we say FFC?
We can.
I love fucking saying. I want to say FFC because I work there too. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a part of my upbringing, and I would still say part of like my trauma as a trainer, because it's all very sales focused, and it's very like push it next month. You have to push what you did before, more sessions, and it's like a machine of trainers and clients and pumping all these people in and trainers and doing a lot of turnover too. I mean, that's cool. Like, big box gyms, they all have pretty much the same kind of issues. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, in the end, it is a business, right? So you do have to get people to pay. So
of course.
I get that. And
of course, but at the same time, like, when you're a super valuable person that's actually helping people heal and change, and you're creating this vibe, this new community within a community, that's also extremely valuable, and that goes on forever. And I'm like, you're going to make sales regardless when you have that.
I 100%. I think that if you're able to facilitate an environment that is educational, motivational, but motivation runs out, right? So you need other people to help you get motivated. You need people to help kind of, drag you along while your feet are in the mud. And that's why when I focus on whatever location I'm at, it is building a community, right?
Yeah.
So the fact of having people around to get you through the workout or to hold you accountable. I mean, in the end, a lot of our stuff is, I see myself as a teacher.
Yeah, right.
So I can teach you things, and you're kind of coming to me for some accountability. And you can cancel on yourself very easily. We're going to have a million reasons why we can't train. But if somebody's waiting there for you and you got to cancel on them, they're like, well, that's not going to be as easy versus if, I just don't go by myself. Or on top of that, if your friends are counting on you to be there, to help them get through, I think that's way more important. And then, I think the money comes after that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one of the biggest issues I feel like with corporate gyms or big box gyms or however you want to put it is that the investment that the trainer puts into their education initially is minimal. So you get your ACE, you get your NASM, and you think that you're the best trainer. And you learn 99% of your stuff on the floor, right? So you can have that reference manual to kind of guide you in somewhat. But in reality, you're going to learn most of the stuff about what works is when you're actually applying it to your people.
Yeah.
And when you don't continue to do education, or if you don't get a mentor, and I'm really big on mentorship.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
If you don't get a mentor, if you don't go to seminars, if you don't go to workshops, if you don't do any of that stuff, you can become very stagnant. And if you, like I was mentioning, I didn't want to become a rep counter. So I had to find something more engaging. And that's how I kind of fell more into kettlebells and all those other kind of tools and modalities, because it was skill-based.
Yeah.
So when I am teaching a skill, they have to learn it. And then they have to practice it. And then they master it. And then what? And then we start a new skill. Or we build upon that skill more.
Yeah.
That training is a lot more psychologically rewarding.
Yeah.
Because you're feeling a big sense of accomplishment. And it's not just about resistance. It's not just about how many pounds am I lifting.
And that is like where that's where I came in, and I still come to like halts in progression with some of my current clients, even like with my current training, or my training personally back in the day when I was 18, learning from mentors, learning what works on the floor, seeing results. But then you get to this wall, strength wall, skill wall, whatever that is, And I do agree with you. Building new skills, psychologically rewarding, that has a toll emotionally, mentally. That has a toll on how your body starts forming and your body starts shaping, your energy levels, your mood, how inclined you are to go to the gym or try new movements or train somewhere else or try a new exercise or try a new workout, right? All that stuff plays in. And then those behaviors start to like take on a new life of its own when you're doing things in life. Right?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, okay, I'm doing this job for a little while, but I'm hitting a wall here. You start to recognize the feeling of hitting a wall, whether that's in your weight training, the skills that you're performing, the job that you're in, how you're raising your kids. You're hitting a wall, and you have to break those barriers. Getting a mentor, going to workshops, getting more education, refining your skills, retuning yourself. It's all about growth and development. So I'm with you on that.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you stop learning, you stop living.
Yeah, fuck.
So if you are hitting walls in your training or your personal development, you're going to have to find an alternative, because what's going to happen is if you stay stagnant and whatever, we're talking about fitness almost, but like we're talking about life really.
Yeah.
If you find something that you just cannot deal with anymore and you keep on dealing with it, you're going to create trauma to yourself. You're going to probably create trauma to the people around you. And it's an imperative that you find a way around or through that obstacle.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks out there that say, no, I'm this way. I've accepted it. And this is it.
Yeah. Well, most of the time I meet those people, they're not very happy. And happy is, maybe a very general term.
Yeah, well, so is success. Success is a general term.
How do we gauge that?
Strength. Right. That can mean so many different things. Your happiness, your joy, your purpose. That can mean so many different things.
No, I'm a firm believer in change.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It's the only thing that's constant.
That's the only thing that's constant, right? The only thing that's permanent is impermanence, right? So
that is the biggest dichotomy of them all.
I mean, if you think about it, though, it's true, because if you are training and you're becoming... Like, for me, I do believe in there's magic in the mundane. So doing the things that you need to put into the work to get to the point where you think that it's going to achieve the goal, you have to put that work in.
And that's day in and day out, even when you don't want to.
Right, that's training, that's your professional development, that's your relationships, that's whatever.
How would you, what message would you say to young bucks out there that ask the question, well, how long is this going to take? Because a lot of these kids growing up today are growing up in instant gratification age, where it's just like, I ordered it comes in the next 6 hours, which is really easy to get used to, but also very like slippery when it comes to development and change, because we get used to this, this easy life, let's call it. It's a soft way of living when, our ancestors were scavenging and killing our food. And then now today we push a button, it's at our door.
Well, I mean, you can go back to, my grandmother, who's, God rest her soul, passed away when she was 93 years old. And I always remember the joke I made to her one time when I was working for farmers markets. I used to work for farmers markets and local farms. And I was telling her what I was doing. And I was saying organic. She's like, organica, guess organica. I'm like, oh, no pesticides, all that kind of stuff. She's like, oh, yeah, they called that just food when I was growing up, I always got a big kick out of that.
It's crazy.
But yeah, if you're thinking about instant gratification and how we are essentially, with technology, eliminating the ability of struggle.
Yeah.
And I feel that's a big detriment.
Huge.
I feel that's going to be a really detriment, and we're probably starting to see some of it. We're definitely going to be seeing it a lot more soon in terms of the consequences in our society.
Yeah.
Because if you do not get what you want immediately, and you have been getting that your whole life, you're probably going to lash out. And then what kind of lash out is that going to be? So if I were to talk to a young person, and I do talk to young people, but if I was to talk to a young person in regards to can they expect their professional development, we'll keep it to a professional development idea. I didn't really master my craft until I was about 5 years in. I didn't really able to define how I did stuff until I was about 5 years into training. I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't sure how I was going to deliver it in the packages that were going to be the most successful and make it digestible for people, and how to present it and how to just essentially demonstrate and talk about it. So it took me 5 years to refine my craft. Now, a lot of people don't have that time, or they don't want to spend that time.
Yeah.
I'm an old school person. I was raised that way. My parents always told me, like, listen, you are guaranteed nothing in life. No one owes you shit.
Is that an old school concept, or can we like make that part of the new school mentality?
I think you're seeing a little bit of that. I think you're seeing a resurgence of that for sure. But now, like you said, you can get anything at the touch of a button, and your attention span is shorter than a goldfish. And we are learning we have a way of not being able to kind of confront some of the things that we have internally.
Yeah, for sure.
And then
that's for sure.
We live in these little. I mean, talk about the metaverse. I feel like we live in the metaverse already. We're living
a version of it.
Yeah, we're already living in an alternate reality. And I think that if you actually, quote unquote, ground yourself, that you're gonna have to have those revelations. Be like, no, I don't know everything. I need to work on this, professionally, personally, emotionally, spiritually. And you can get that development, but you have to put in the time. I would even tell my clients that. You know, we live in fast food, drive-through fitness.
I even think 5 years is like fast, to be honest with you.
That's 5 years of every day, all day.
Yeah, right. Like every day, all day,
books,
9, 10 hours.
Showing up with my mentor.
Yes.
5 days a week for 2 hours.
Yes.
Learning.
And I still think that's fast. That's fast as hell. Like I started kicking field goals late in life. Like I played soccer my entire life. I started kicking field goals, footballs in football-like scenarios when I was 21. Okay, I played 4 years of college. I still didn't find a groove. There were times, but it was hard for me to find a groove. Then I played competitive flag football for 7 years after college. I didn't find a real groove and mastery until 7 years in. Yeah. So like that's something that's very similar to my whole soccer background, but you put it in a whole new setting, a new set of rules and how you have to go out there and perform. Like you have to acclimate, and that shit takes time. One kick at a time, one day at a time, one rep at a time. And yeah, that element today is not ever talked about, and it's an important piece to higher level growth and development. To be healthy in general. Like we can't, like we're everything is very easy, and that struggle element is eliminated, and that does have a ton of consequences. Unintended consequences probably are going to start showing themselves for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, I think we are finding that out already.
Yeah.
I think as a whole, people are lacking purpose, and they're trying to find purpose in empty things, like likes.
Yeah, material stuff,
or not even really material, because if you're going in the digital route,
it's a whole new genre, isn't it?
I know that you're well aware of like the effect of like dopamine and social media, right?
Yeah.
So if you're checking your phone every 2 minutes to see if everyone liked your posts, and that's all you're chasing,
and what are you not chasing? But let me tell you too, that is also part of my personal problem as I try to keep balance with social media and building an online brand and a persona and a business, because third dimensional reality business has to intertwine with the digital business, as we keep talking about, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We're gonna have to adapt, modify, change things up, and we're gonna have to fucking put in another 10 years of just day in and day out and figuring out how that works. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, man. I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. I got distracted. The serotonin, the dopamine, the digital likes. It's very much a problem with myself too, because like I get upset with algorithms. I get upset with when certain posts don't pan out the way I think they're gonna pan out, and it's just like, what the fuck am I doing? Am I wasting my time here?
Right.
Is this what you have to do? Another post? Be consistent with posts? It's just like, So yes, it does affect me, and I'm someone who makes a living on teaching people how to take care of themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I want to be more cognizant of myself. And we're figuring it out in this very like beginning stage of the technological age, the digital age, right? We're pioneers here. We're pioneering this shit. This is like the first real piece of technology. The internet is the first real piece of technology that's taken our human society and leveling it up to the next form of whatever human beings are going to become.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
If you think about it, we haven't really evolved in 100,000 years, 200,000 years. So we're essentially cavemen with nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Now That's why I always kind of like I'm always very amazed when people just can't. We're talking about like basics, right? Like, and you're talking about your approach. I guess my point is that as fitness professionals, we're like, if I had to be honest, I actually hate fitness. Why? Because a lot of it is based on vanity. A lot of it is truly just aesthetic stuff. Even at the sacrifice of health.
That's true. That's true.
It is probably over sexualized.
I agree.
And it's not about a comprehensive. And I'm not really a big fan of the word holistic, but I think that word is applicable.
Yeah.
To be able to be like, you're a human being, go outside, get some sun, move.
Yeah.
Breathe in fresh air.
Yeah.
Drink some water. Eat food that is from the earth and natural and not in a bag or processed and all that stuff. I think if we can approach fitness in that way, we would have a more tremendous effect on people than sending them a whole bunch of reels about how we do kettlebell swings. Right? We're trying to, if we can get people maybe to say to themselves, I need to be able to be myself in my training. Like, we talk about movement-based stuff. We talk about mace and flow and
play.
body weight and play. Like, it's okay to not just do bench press and squat all the time. It's okay to do some ground-based mobility or to play a recreational sport or to get outside and swing your mace and clubs. I tell my wife when I'm doing stuff like, and it looks kind of funky, and she'll like, oh, but that was trippy. I'm like, yeah, I'm expressing myself. I'm trying to express myself through movement. I feel like if we start moving the needle towards that quote unquote holistic approach about, it's not just about reps and weights and your abs, and that's all nice, but it should really be about trying to improve yourself on a whole, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can send that message through social media, maybe. And I know I follow a lot of people that send that message. A lot of people follow that message. Right. But you have to implement it. You just can't like it. You got to go and do it. And I think that when people do that, and I know the people that I have worked with that have done that, their results are better because we're eliminating things out of their life that are not necessary, like sports. Like, sports is entertainment. Do you need to be entertained all the time? I don't think so. They're finding themselves more healthy than just like about gains. So that's why I'm trying to.
And gains is another term that can be very iffy. Like it can be vague. It's very vague. It's very vague. Like gains to you can be very different than gains to me. And like, what the fuck are gains anyway? Like for me, gains right now are just, I want high level energy mentally, physically, for as long as effing possible. And whatever that means. So I can stay engaged and do the things that I like, so I can be creative, so I can be intimate with the people that I love. And that, like you said, that I really hate fitness, but you described a mentality of a collective that you really dislike.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what is that?
And the narrative, the dominating narrative, the dominating collective.
Yes, definitely. The dominating collective. And like we're seeing it right in front of our eyes. And like you're a fitness professional who's very successful, and like you're seeing this, and this is part of the issue. It's part of the collective. It's our issue too as coaches, because it's like, I mean, I'm sure you want to try to help as many people as possible, but there's something that a single person can't do. You know what I mean? And like to switch that, or like at least change the conversation around fitness and talk about this more holistic understanding about it's not just gains, workout for the hour, Monday chest day. It's a lifestyle now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I'm more positive that you're seeing that happen more now.
I agree.
So the more that we can get that out, I feel the better.
Yeah.
I think it'll be more rewarding for people. I think that people will find purpose not in likes and the gram, but purpose in their health, purpose in their movement, purpose in their. And they're trying to maybe inspire other people to follow them, especially like the fact that I train mostly from home. So the fact that I can move in front of my kids.
You work out.
When I work out. The fact that I can move in front of my kids and they can kind of see what we're doing and, get on the side and kind of copy that, is that I'd rather instill that in them than anything I can think of off the top of my head
Dude,
right now.
that's so effing important. I haven't known you for that long, but there are so many things that you've like put into my head as I'm about to become a father that made me go, oh yeah, like you've given me 5 years of experience in just a couple lines where I'm just like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's right. But yeah, of course, like I don't have kids yet, but that makes total sense. Like I think about, because I work out at home myself, throw mace around, I have my hydro bag at home, I got my ropes, got kettles, clubs, I got it all. And I think about my kids watching me as I move. And like that is way more important because from the get-go, they're understanding, oh, that time by yourself to move around is something that helps dad do his thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's overall, they're associating that with something good, not like, I got to show myself off and I got to get this affirmation for people to tell me that my abs look really good. And,
or totally disregarding your health, like, generations before us where they're smoking crazy amounts of cigarettes, alcohol, eating all the bad food, and they didn't take into consideration their health at all. You know what I mean?
They didn't even think about it at all.
I mean, I think about like my dad. He'd have people over playing cards and it'd be a cloud full of cigarette smoke, and they're drinking beers and whiskey. Yeah. And like, hey, I mean, sometimes men like to be men, and maybe that's, I guess, the definition of what they define as a man back then, but then those guys never went to the gym or anything like that. You know what I mean?
But maybe it was like severe survival in the beginning stages of their life, right? Like, I got to get the fuck out of where I am right now. I got to figure out a way to fund my existence, fund my family's existence, and they did that. And they're in their stage. My kids are grown up. It's time to play cards and smoke, baby.
Yeah, and I understand that too. I feel like, once again, we're talking about like transitions in terms of how people are developing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that, and I was a victim of it too. I feel like that whole like Madison Avenue idea of like men smoke merits and drink whiskey and this is what men do. Like, actually, no, I don't believe that. I don't think men are meant to be alcoholics. Like, in fact, my biggest joke all the time is if more men smoked weed versus drink, we'd probably have a lot better relationships and better people in the world because alcohol tends to really mutate people into terrible people, and unfortunately, there's a lot of frayed relationships and traumatized childhoods because of alcohol.
Yeah, right.
But you can go to the store and get it anywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like that idea of men doing certain things is starting to break a little bit, and maybe we are trying to return to more of like I don't want to say primal or primitive, but more of like
a balance of the masculine and feminine. Let's talk about
more of a like, I don't know, as a father, like the protector, right, and the leader, and the person who you can go to for sage advice.
Yeah.
Not the playboy, whiskey drinking, cigarettes guy anymore.
Yeah, and you're talking about like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, where it was that, right?
Because the only reference I really have are like the boomers.
Sure. But then look how like collectively the narrative has kind of shifted into the future is feminine, right? That woke ideology that, the future is this, which, listen, I'm not trying to judge or anything, but it's just an interesting observation that society, human consciousness, and the way people live life and the mantras that people kind of abide by and live by is like, men do this, and then now the narrative is like, men bad, toxic masculinity, men bad, the future is feminine, we got to have a woman and everything. Like, again, I'm not trying to talk shit, but like it's just the collective understanding of how people are talking, which is very interesting to me. It's always swaying one-sided here, and that's how it's got to be. That gray area is kind of like untalked about, and because it's boring, it's not sexy, it doesn't sell as much, but like to be a quality leader, to be the protector, you have to have a balance of the masculine and feminine inside. And I think that's what this type of training does. When you talk about nervous system training, flow training, play training, it gets you more in touch with the full version of yourself, which is the combination of the masculine and feminine.
Now you can balance a little bit more, and men do need outlets for anger and frustration. I've known that strength training and training in general has helped me learn how to cope with certain circumstances.
Definitely.
And learn how to understand stress.
Even our rest, our breathing, the hot and cold therapies,
right.
myofascial release techniques, chiropractic adjustments, whatever it is, like supplements, balancing yourself, fasting. Fasting is a great way.
No, I was literally just having this conversation about why is fasting beneficial, and I gave like obviously the obvious points.
Sure.
But what I told this person was like, fasting offers you the opportunity to understand struggle on a daily basis and know that it's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
And that's very psychologically rewarding.
Yeah. Definitely.
But to kind of circle back in regards to the idea of like men and women and stuff like that, I gotta say, I feel like that's a whole contrived narrative that is literally a wedge issue. Because
a wedge issue, what does that mean?
Meaning that it's meant to divide men and women.
Okay, got it.
Because the idea that we're referencing the most prosperous time ever. Me and you are the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the total population of the human population that ever existed.
Yeah.
We live in the most affluent, most thriving times that humanity has ever known.
Yes.
We can go back to like my grandmother's generation. People were barely getting by. It took the dichotomy and the relationship of men and women and the roles that they fulfill to break through and to survive, right? So if I'm a living in the Middle Ages in Europe, and the fucking plague is going on, you think I'm thinking about the patriarchy, or you think I'm thinking about male dominance? I'm thinking about how the hell am I going to live,
and how am I going to get my family out of here to safe havens,
and then the partner that I am with, how are we going to do this together?
Yeah, right.
So I think the idea of they're wedge issues. I feel like they're politically motivated.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have to understand, if you have no reference of history, and you don't understand that men and women have been suffering together for millennia, and then most likely the quote unquote oppressors are a very substrata of anyone who's ever existed as well, right? So people will talk about like boardrooms, right? Well, there's only a certain amount of females for corporate boards. Okay, so there's male dominance. It's like, yes, but those males are dominating all the other males as well. It's not just like any males there. It's that those super productive people, like someone like, who I don't idolize, but someone like Jeff Bezos, like someone like that has so much efficiency in how they manage their time and is constantly calculating. That person is not the same person as a guy like me who just wants to live his life, have his family. And, I'm not thinking about that level kind of dominance.
Right.
That person is. He's the wants to be the Michael Jordan of the business.
Yeah.
But the idea that we are supposed to be thinking like, oh, like I need to eliminate this role to embrace this role more. It doesn't work that way. You have to, and you can realize it's in your microcosm of a marriage. If you are working towards something independently, then your wife is working independently. You can have your own interests and everything like that. That's obvious. But if you have a goal and what are you working towards, you guys can have two different plans.
Correct.
You have to be working together.
Yeah.
And the idea that you're going to try to separate them for almost the idea like that you're going to punish them for past grievances. I just feel like that's really detrimental.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree because like then it creates a whole group of people that are dependent on everybody else,
and they're malcontent. They're never going to be happy. They're always going to find a reason to not be happy about the current circumstances because it's a lot easier to blame everything else than to take a look internally. Yeah. And you see that in the personal training field. You have a client. They tell you they want everything in the world. You tell them what's required, and they don't do it. And then you're like, okay, this is the bare minimum I want you to do. And they don't do it. And what do? They blame work. They blame family. They blame stress.
Sure.
I'm not going to devalue people, but it seems like everyone has a thyroid problem now. Like, is that self-diagnosed? Or is that diagnosed from a physician? Or how are you doing that, right? I want to know. We got to find out. As a trainer, I feel like my job is to find solutions. And I need to know the whole picture. So if you're not going to look intrinsically at yourself to see how can you improve professionally, we were talking about this earlier, how you can improve professionally, or how you're going to just lose a couple of pounds to go look good on the beach, like you're going to have to start taking responsibility for that somehow. And responsibility is probably one of the biggest issues that we're avoiding right now.
Huge.
Right? We're trying to avoid responsibility at all costs.
It's either you suffer, life is suffering, right? You suffer a life of being disciplined, waking up early, eating the right foods that are hard to eat, and hard to avoid all the comforting foods. It's either you suffer the life of discipline or you suffer the life of regret. Some way, shape, or form.
That's
right.
That's pretty damn good. I like that.
Right?
I'm going to steal that.
yeah. It's just, I mean, I'm sure I've heard it on some podcasts. But I deeply think about these types of things. There are things that I listen to on podcasts, which is part of the reason why I like podcasting, not to mention that it's an amazing networking tool. But, like, I love listening to them and being like, boom, wow, that was something very interesting from someone who's very high level that resonates with me. And, like...
You can think about it for a while, too.
You marinate on it, and you're like, what the fuck does that mean? Yeah, of course. Because, like, we've both been there probably, right? I don't know if you've ever had a job where it's like, yeah, I'm content, 9 to 5, whatever, I'm done, I make X, I go home, just chill. Like, I don't know about you, but I can't do that for a long time.
No, I mean, that's exactly why I got into training.
Yeah, like, it seems to be like, oh, wait a minute, there's something missing here. I can't just be, like, having these 4 hours at the tail end of my day to, like... just do the things that I want to do and like that makes absolutely no sense to me. There's got to be a better way. Yeah. So along the process and about finding a better way of doing it, you have to suffer being disciplined.
Absolutely. You got to sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
The idea that something
sounds so cliche. Got to sacrifice.
Yeah. But it's true. I mean, I was just having this conversation today about somebody, I stopped working at the club I've been at for almost 7 years. Uh-huh. Lots of success.
7 years, huh?
Yeah.
How many years out of the 7 were you number one?
3, and then within the top 3 for 4. Or excuse me, 3 of those years, and then in my first year, I still made the top 15.
That's awesome. So like in 2 days in a row, because I was hanging out with my friend Kristen, who was also number one at FFC for 3 years out of the 4 she was there. So like back-to-back days, I'm talking with 2 people that have a very interesting understanding and experience about what it's like to work out with people, help people get after it, achieve goals, change, develop, doing all this stuff. And then on top of it, seeing what the fitness business is all about from a certain perspective. But like 2 people that actually have really put in the work in to develop an amazing business, business for that big company that you were working with. And like, that says something to me. Like, I'm learning so much as an entrepreneur, running my own fitness business, whatever this becomes, which I'm open-ended to. So, like, just, on a side note, I appreciate all this insight and this wisdom. So, yeah, a lot of success, 7 years in. Where were you going to go with that?
Basically talking about, like, how you don't want to live a certain way. I was doing that supply chain management gig, and I'd wake up, and I'd be like, I don't really want to go. And then I get anxiety about going. And then I was, like, not very happy when I was there. And I was like, I kind of fell into the job too. It was just like, hey, I know I can get you a job. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And it was good financially. But, cliche again, money's not everything. And when you're realizing maybe your life doesn't have like a point, right?
Okay, this is interesting.
When am I giving? One of my biggest, you want to talk about regrets. One of my biggest regrets, it was that I never served. I always wanted to serve, and I never did.
Do you feel like that's an intrinsic part of being human? Like that's part of our inside of our DNA, and like we have to do that to be healthy?
I think you do, because
I think so too.
I think you have to. I mean, some people have it more than others, for sure.
I agree.
I was speaking more specifically to service in the military. I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to maybe contribute to something bigger, and it just didn't happen. And then I get this job, and I feel like I took the bait. I took the bait of like, you want the BMW, you want the fancy car, you want the popping bottles, you want the loose women, you want the bling, you want that. That's what you want. That's
Did you live that for a little while? Did you have?
I was never like that high level, but I had fun. I did the things.
You bought your BMWs and you went out to clubs and bought bottles.
I never really had fancy cars, but I had nice shit. I had the 50-inch plasmas. And
I wanted it, dude. I wanted it too.
Stuff,
because we never had it growing up.
Right. I mean, we weren't poor and we weren't rich. We were just working class people. And to my parents, me going to a private school, going to college, and getting a job was what they were supposed to do, and they did it. And I thank God every single day that they sacrificed for me, my sister, my brother. Yeah. But I think I kind of took that line of like, well, you're only going to find happiness in material things and financial success, and that's how you're going to get girls to like you and all that stuff. When what I found more than anything is that people just want someone who's genuine and honest. And maybe even if that honesty hurts a little bit. But yeah, I'm working this job. It's not so great. I'm trying to give back. And being able to find a profession that you can give back on a daily, on the hour, it's very rewarding. I mean, like I'm saying, I'm closing my chapter. I'm not leaving on a low note by any means. I'm actually living on a super high note. I'm still number one producer. So
that's awesome. Congrats, by the way. That's
thank you. And I'm having people tell me things that are intimate and very emotional. And it's about fitness for sure, but it's more than that. It's that you were able to connect with them. You caught them at the time when they needed you most, and you didn't even know it, and they didn't even know it, and it helped. And maybe one thing that you said to them in one session stuck with them for the rest of their lives. And for me, I cannot ask for anything more rewarding professionally. Huge. Do I want somebody to remember the deal that we did, and then we went to to a nightclub and pop bottles, or do I want somebody that I helped in a journey that they were trying to figure out who they were, and I helped them at least get on the road and said, just keep walking that way. And when people tell you that, yeah, you did do that, I mean, that's priceless. That you cannot put a financial number on that. You can't put anything on that, because you really are touching place. You are serving. We talked about sacrifice. We talked about what it takes to give. Giving is so good, and giving without any expectation and getting something in return is even better.
Which we could always be better about. Like, I know that there are certain aspects in my life personally where I'm good at that, giving with unexpected return or whatever, or not expecting a return, which I think is an essential piece to when you're running a business. Like, you have to do it because you genuinely care about people, and then people realize, oh wow, that's the real deal, like what you are, and then boom, it just keeps happening every month and every month. Fuck, I lost my train of thought.
It's reciprocal though, you know what I mean? Like, if I give, it will come back.
But there are other ways in my life, what I was going to go back to is, like, I don't think I do that as good with other people in other aspects of my life that I do with work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I love that part of life, but then it just makes me realize, like, okay, how can I do what I do so well with my business and my networking skills and my training, that what I can do better in my personal life?
Well, I mean, what do you do when you're trying to pass a test, or what do you do when you're trying to learn a new skill? You practice.
But like being self-aware first, that you like, okay, I need room for growth in this area. Like, I can be this way a little bit more with my friends. I can be this way a little bit more with my significant other, with my parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then we have a conundrum of over-giving yourself too, which is a real problem.
Right. Unfortunately, people do take advantage of that.
Yes.
And
yes. There's a spectrum,
delicate balance,
right? And that's with everything, I think.
Yeah. But like you said, if you're aware of things that you need to improve in your life, I think that makes you a better person immediately.
Yeah.
Because we do have a lot of people that think they know fucking everything. And I might come across as I know everything, but that's just me trying to be assertive. But trust me, anybody who's worth themselves as a coach, I feel, if you're worth yourself as a husband, or even as just a freaking person, you have to be self-aware to the fact that you are not perfect. And you make mistakes, and you need to work on yourself as well. And it's okay to admit that you got issues. And it's okay to admit that you need help. I come from Latino culture. We're very machismo, and sometimes that's a little frowned upon to ask for help. But I find that when I do need help, which I can carry my cross, but when I do need help, me being able to ask for it now, when I would have reservations about that, I mean, it's made my life significantly easier.
You're just we're a way healthier person because of that
I'm
ability.
not dealing with all that stress. I'm not dealing with the fact that.
So let's make that mainstream again. That's part of like my personal philosophy, is like being vulnerable, balancing the masculine and feminine, showing other men that it is okay to ask for help, be emotional, or ask those questions, those intrinsic questions about like, why do I feel this way? Is it an issue that I had when I was a child? Is it a relationship issue with my brother or my aunt or my mother, specifically mother, father, really?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When we talk back about childhood trauma and our relationship with mom and dad, that almost always resurfaces in some way, shape, or form. If it was good, it comes out in a very good, cohesive, synchronistic way. But if there was incoherence and trauma between mom, dad, and your,
Yeah, it manifests itself.
Totally does.
Yeah, it manifests yourself if you have, abandonment issues, or if, one of your parents was an addict, or, God forbid, if you were abused.
Yeah, or even simple things, just like how you make your bed, or how you look at money,
right.
or how you dress.
Yeah,
right?
we had to kind of break out of that.
We adopt these things, and like when we're becoming self-aware or becoming more and more higher level understanding of our consciousness, I feel like we're breaking those patterns. Those patterns are becoming more highlighted, and I think like the more I look at my mom and dad, the more I look at the stuff that's inside of me, all the good and then all the bad, and it's like, okay, what is that?
No. Well, remember when you thought your parents were superheroes?
Yeah.
And they knew everything?
Yeah.
And then you get to like when you're about 28, maybe even a little bit, and you're like,
28's generous.
Yeah.
But I get you. Yeah.
You respect your parents, or maybe you're prolonging it, but like, you're like, that wasn't a bright move. And actually, now that I think about it, you've done a lot of stupid stuff. You find out that your parents are just normal people.
Yeah.
I feel like our generation, well, you're a little bit younger than I am, but the two generations, let's say millennials and Gen Zers, I feel like we can be a little bit more self-aware, and we can say to ourselves, I'm making these mistakes that my parents made, and I'm still doing it, and I need to break that matrix.
Yeah.
I need to get out of that, and you have to do that through self-exploration and by being honest with yourself. And when I notice when I'm doing it, I have to retreat, and I have to coach myself and be you can't lose your temper that fast. You can't. Well, for me, it's a lot of anger stuff, right? So I get fired up real fast, and I can lose my temper, and I don't want to be that person because I don't like myself when I'm that person.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find a compass sometimes.
Totally.
It's hard to find a compass. It's hard to figure out what's a good example. I consider myself a Christian. I'm trying to use Christ as that model. It's worked very, very, very well for me recently, within like last year and a half. I always consider myself a Christian, but it's definitely added a lot more into how I can view things and how do I adapt to things.
Sure. And
how do I fix the issues that I'm trying to solve versus like I have no compass. I'm just trying to figure it out on my own. We're trying to have some guide, whether that is religion or spirituality, or energy. That's up to you. You can do whatever you want.
In one way, shape, or form.
You have to have faith in something.
Yeah.
You have to have purpose in something.
Yeah.
We need to make that more mainstream versus just instant gratification and valuing yourself on only what other people think of you.
Yeah. Do you know Paul Chek's 4 doctor model?
I read Paul Chek early in my career, so you'd have to give me a little refresher.
So Dr. Movement, keeping your movement in check, right? Whichever way that is. Dr. Quiet, your rest, recovery, your sleep, your time to yourself.
Yeah.
Dr. Diet, the food that you're consuming, the information that you're consuming. And then the 4th pillar of the 4 doctors is Dr. Happy, checking in with yourself, and is your dream big enough? It's a real key core component of the check system, and that when you are setting goals for yourself and you are looking to make changes to yourself physically, and then when you start doing that, you realize the mental and emotional piece is very, very deeply tied and rooted into that too. Dr. Happy is that last component where you're keeping your dream in check, because if your dream is big enough, it's very difficult to have crisis.
Yeah.
And that's what he talks about. And I think we're lacking that understanding of just aiming for something bigger, whatever that is, because we're a piece to something bigger. So contribution, service, in whatever way, something selfless, something that you have to have faith in because you may not know all the unknowns, which I don't think you should.
I mean, geez, man, I'm moving to a city in 3 days.
Bingo.
That I've visited for 72 hours. My wife has never been to.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen the place in person that we're moving to. And why are we doing that? Because we feel like now is the time for us to have a bigger vision and to get out of the circumstances that we're in. We don't have bad circumstances. It's just we want something different.
Yeah.
And unless you make that
good.
move for your check happiness, I mean, what does that anything else really matter? It doesn't.
Right.
And then it's going to manifest itself, obviously, if you got your kids and you're pissed off all the time because you hate your life, you think your kids are going to not pick that up in some form or the other.
Right.
You know, you got to make bold moves. You know, the idea that we have to do things a certain way, I just don't think that's true. I don't think you have to stay at a job for 25 years and get your retirement and your cheap gold watch. I don't believe that. Well, that's the way it is. Like, well, it doesn't need to be that way. You know, I feel like there's obviously pillars of civilization, there is objective truth, but you can make your own reality. You can make your own path.
I agree.
You have to make those moves. You know, a lot of people have told me, like, you're really lucky. You're doing this. You're lucky. I'm like, luck's got fucking nothing to do with it. You know, we had a plan. We had a vision. We put the wheels in motion, and we're there. And guess what? It was a shit ton of work.
It's still, like, the work, I think, is still ahead of you, too.
And it's still ahead of us.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the struggle. Maybe the struggle is realizing, seeing the goal, looking at the goal, making your plan. In Strong First we say, plan to work and work to plan. And that applies to life. Because if we didn't, you know, a lot of people told us, we're going to, and now they're not.
Yeah.
And they found 1.5 million reasons.
Well, there's a lot of people that are talking in this world.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
And they're not doing the moves that they needed to do. And I don't know if we're doing everything right, but it seems that we're getting everything in track. And if I was not, you know, I've been very pessimistic in the last 2 years. And this is probably the first time I'm feeling pretty damn optimistic. And it's only because I said to myself, I need to check happy. I need to make sure that I'm offering
It's an essential
happiness.
piece. It's an essential piece to living your life and moving forward in a coherent manner.
And whatever that really means to you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then once again, I do believe, like, you know, you have to be in the spectrum of reality, but you have to have objective truth, but you can create your own reality in regards to how am I going to get to what I might envision will give me happiness.
Like, when you say stay in your own reality, does that mean like a realistic view of what you're capable of doing?
I'm saying that, you know, don't get caught in, like, you have to work a corporate job. Don't get caught in, you know, I had to have nice things so that other people like me. You can find happiness in other ways. You know, I feel like if you can create your reality in regards to what would give me the most return, what would give me the feeling of accomplishment and happiness and success and just general well-being. You know, I always joke, like, I've been waking up at 4 o'clock for fucking 12 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sometimes 3:45.
Dude, that's nuts,
you
man.
know, and I can count the times on one hand where I was like, I don't want to fucking go.
Yeah.
But I did.
Yeah.
And I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
And that gave me happiness. And if I tell people I'm waking up at 3:45 in the morning, like, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, I never thought about it.
What time do you go to bed?
Like 9:30.
9:30. That's non-negotiable. Yeah. If it gets creeps up 10:30, creeps up on you.
It's like, well, you know, anything's unpredictable with a 7 and a 5-year-old. But I do my best to get them down. And we have a ritual, right? So devices are off.
Yeah.
Lights are dimmed.
Yeah.
Bath, story. You know, I'm detaching from my device. You know, we try to keep a ritual. It definitely does not go always according to plan.
Yeah.
I want more sleep. I know the difference between a solid 6, and I sleep like a rock. I definitely get deep sleep. But I know the difference between 6 and 8.
Dude, me too.
Yeah, I know the difference between 6 and 8.
6 hours. Like, I'm ready to go home by the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
know.
I don't like that feeling either, because, like, I don't want to, because I had to, like, retrain my brain to be like, because I used to be a high school teacher. And then just like the conditioning from the times that we were in high school. You go to school, you go through every single class, you can't wait till 3 o'clock, you got soccer practice, you can't wait to go home and go to bed and like, all right, hang out with your friends or whatever, and then you got to do the next thing. So then I was training for a little while, but then I became a teacher, and then I was back into that kind of mode. And I didn't like the whole, oh my God, I got to be there until 3 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever it is. Oh, I got games tonight. Like, I didn't want to feel that way or look at things that way. So, like, even now as an entrepreneur, like, I don't want to feel that way. Like, even though this was my last thing today to do a podcast, I was looking forward to, like,
I've been going since
getting into podcasting again and doing it more. And just to talk to you, this is your last day. You've impacted me in a short amount of time. Just to have a conversation, that excites me. We get wisdom. Like, we're becoming better because we're picking each other's brains here. And we have a very similar background when it comes to the work that we do and the people that we work with. So like seeing what works for you helps me, and seeing what works for me is going to help you, and vice versa. And that's cool. So I got excited for this, and that's my point. Like, I don't care what time this ends, because like, even though I do want to go home and see my wife and my dogs and be home, like, I love that this is work.
Right. No, exactly. Right. That's what I mean, creating your own reality.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's what I really mean. Okay. It's like, what are you going to do? And we talked about this before one time about like, we all have, I'm going to start that YouTube page.
Yeah.
I am going to open a business.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a chef. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Our dreams.
Like,
they're all in there.
They're in there. And like, I'm not one for hustle culture, but like, you have to hustle. Like, you have to put the work in. You have to create your own reality. If you really want something, guess what? You could probably fucking do it, but you just got to do it.
So hard though, Sam.
It is
so hard to, and I don't want to. Well, then you don't want to.
Then you don't want to.
And that's it.
I had a friend that told me one time. He was following a friend of his who became like a freelance journalist.
Uh-huh.
And his first big thing was going to Occupy Wall Street. And the guy was literally like sleeping on people's couches, but he was covering that whole thing. And he was like, I really envied that. And I was like, well, that's interesting. This guy's sleeping on couches. Like, yeah, but he's like free. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of people look at that guy's life and say, well, that's not glamorous. He's like, what's more important, having glamour or being free? I was like, you got a really fucking good point there. So I think that's what you're trying to describe right now. You're here, you're doing your business, you were training people, you had your class, I had my clients, we're sitting down doing a podcast, but in reality, we're doing kind of whatever the fuck we want. And we're making money doing it.
Yeah.
And we're returning. We're not just extracting.
Yeah.
We're returning.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of bros talking right now, but if somebody gets one thing out of this talk, then it was definitely worth it.
100%.
So
no, it's worth it already, because I already got something out of it.
Exactly. Me too. Exactly.
And that's like the gist of it at the end of the day. And I got to remember that when I do my podcast, because I stopped doing it because I started getting all these inquiries of people that wanted to get on the podcast that I wanted to do, because I'm a people pleaser too. And then it stopped becoming fun.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got to keep it interesting.
Dude,
just like training too. Like, you got to keep training interesting.
It stopped becoming fun. And I didn't want to edit it. And I'm just like, fuck this conversation with this fucking dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't feeling it at all. And it's just like, ugh. But it taught me a lot of things. And it brought me to kind of where I'm at right now. I know for sure, because there are so many people that I podcasted with that made me change. They didn't convince me to do it. I just had cathartic moments within conversation with them, and putting out the conversations and getting the feedback from other people. It made me go like, oh yeah, okay. Well, even though the teaching industry is kind of like shunning me because like I want to ask questions on why they do things a certain way, and I put all this time and effort in anyway, why don't I just put all that time and effort into something that's my own brand and see what happens and see what the market says? Oh yeah, okay, that works. And like, I don't think it's bad to say that I'm making 3-4 times more than I was teaching. You know what I'm saying? And like, that makes me feel really good to like, and I think maybe a little taboo to talk about that kind of stuff, but like, it's okay to talk about that. I feel okay with it, and that feels really good to like make those changes and be like, okay, I'm not cool with this type of reimbursement for the time and effort I'm putting into this.
Right.
Like, and then you realize, oh, those institutions don't really give a fuck how good you are and the type of effort we're putting on and making a difference between some of these people that go to this school or go to this gym or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the higher ups don't necessarily really give a shit, but like the universe cares that we're being good to each other. Don't you think that?
I feel like I guess you brought up a good point in regards to the return of your effort in regards, like with the institutions, right?
Yeah.
Like being an educator in a formal environment in a school.
Yeah.
Would you say that the environment that children live in is the most optimal environment?
Hell no.
Absolutely.
It's not optimal for the kids. It's not optimal for the teachers.
No, it's not.
It's just
a model.
It's this one meeting place that everybody goes to talk about how much they hate being there on all ends. I was there as a student. I was there as a teacher. And it's like a building that let's like romanticize because like this is in the middle of our town and we love this. Do we though? Or
I call them institutionalized learning centers.
Yeah, that's what
you know what I mean. I feel like it is the beginnings of institutionalization, and I don't like that model. My wife and I have homeschooled for the last year and a half because we didn't like the model. Yeah. We're going to a model that's more friendly to us now, but if need be, we would have extracted ourselves from that.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it, like, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you before, but I wanted to be, one of my biggest passions is history.
Yeah, you
wanted
to be a history teacher.
When I wanted to be a really history teacher, one of my things was like, well, I should go into education. And then my parents told me, you will not make money in education. So I couldn't go to the military, and then you won't make money in education. So you're going to go into like business. And I did. My brother's an attorney. My sister works for Sony for many years, some executive. That was like, the model that you had to follow, and this is what you're going to do and fall into these places. And I don't know. I don't know if that works anymore. I think we romanticized our system because it did turn out certain results, but I feel like those results are probably dwindling now. I mean, you look at graduation rates, you look at literacy rates. I mean, they're literally changing the standards that people have to do.
Yes, and that's the thing. So it's not really school anymore. They're changing the standards. They're changing the standards for specific groups of people. That specific schools are changing standards all over the place. Like, classes aren't what they once were. There's emphasis on areas that I don't feel like are really high level for overall growth and development, like overemphasis on things that may not necessarily be the end all be all, like standardized testing and like summer school AP this and like GPA and like really prestigious schools. Like, I don't know like what all that really means in the end of the day. Although like I don't want to like poo-poo high school and grade school altogether, because like it does provide a lot of good, like the interaction, the social development, like.
But does it though? But does it? Think about the amount of bullying that happens. Think about the amount of.
But that could create callous too. That can create like really hard kids, which is good too, because you want that. You want the blows. Want these things. You want the blows. I only could know my personal experience. So like I grew up in the O'Hare area, and I had a very good upbringing. I had very close friends. I was into music. Now, luckily, my parents were amazing. They gave us, and they did the best that they could to give us whatever we needed to do our thing. So, like, I grew up playing music from the time I was 12. I was in a band till I was 19. You know what I'm saying? I played soccer. I was exercising. They gave me ideas about, things or on ways how I can live my life. Like, my grandpa and my dad were like, yeah, you should be a trainer. You like fitness. This is good. This would be good for you. And I never thought about it because I never thought about getting a trainer once.
Be even a job.
Like, if I told my dad, like, Dad, I got to pay the trainer this week for training for high school soccer, he'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Go to the gym yourself. You know what I mean? So I didn't realize that was a thing that you can kind of go into. It was just like, oh, you want to go into accounting, you want to be a doctor, you want to work at a bank. My grandmother was like, oh, be a director of a bank. That's where there's so much like
right. What? That's so old school, yeah.
And like, yeah, it's just interesting. And like you grow, you form, you have different ideas. So going back to school, like, I think we can do it better, but I also think it does provide a lot of good structure. You know what I'm saying? No. I definitely think it's definitely going downhill, but I do think it has the potential to be way more impactful.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It has the potential to be way more impactful.
It has the potential, right? It's not perfect.
It's just not there right now, and it's declining. And it's my fear is that like it can get so far gone that now you're going to have all these different types of institutions that people like you are putting your kids in because like the latter is better than what's going on right now.
Yeah. I mean, quite honestly, I feel like that's kind of across the board in terms of establishment institutions. Like, my biggest thing right now is wondering if there's going to be like this boy who cried wolf kind of moment where I've made this known, wear it on my sleeve, I have lost complete trust in the medical establishment.
Well, in like any sort of mainstream pieces of information,
Correct.
It's very corrupt, and it's
very
not what's in the
corrupt.
best interest for people, obviously.
No, and I mean, if you make a mistake, just admit it. We all make mistakes, even the experts.
Yeah.
But just admit it. Don't deny it, because it makes you look culpable. It makes you look guilty.
Yeah.
And you do it repetitively. So if I have, a cheating spouse, and I keep on catching her, and she's like, nope, that's not me. That wasn't me.
But unless
that,
unless the motive of that group or that person who's trying to lie and share disinformation, it's to warp reality. It's a version of control. Don't you think?
Used to think these people are idiots, so I would attribute stupidity to them. Honestly, I attribute malice now. I attribute malice and contempt, because you can't be that dumb. Like, can you be that dumb? Maybe you can. Maybe that's how the world actually operates. It's just a bunch of rich idiots that are handling everything. But I don't know. I feel like we're talking about education. We're talking about medical establishment. We're talking about judicial establishments. We're talking about financial establishments.
This can go all over the place.
Yeah,
you can go to environmental. This can go to nutritional.
There's a degradation of it all, and education is one part of it.
Yeah, huge part of it.
But I hope that they don't erode confidence so much into the system that when something does come around that's pretty bad, no one believes them.
Yeah, right.
Or it gets so bad because we catch them in lies that we're fucking done. And I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And if you have half of the country listening to them and half of the country not listening to them, you can't have a country. And that scares me.
That scares me too. That's interesting. And we're younger guys that are kind of changing what the landscape looks like.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that my little pebble that I drop in the pond every day ripples out.
Yeah,
I hope that.
I hope so too.
I really do. But
how many of us you think have to be putting their genuine pebble out into the pond for positive ripples in order to have a collective that kind of changes the course? Do you feel like, because a lot of people contribute to some of the negative points of where society is right now, like people's behavior over a stretch of time have contributed to where our society is right now. But how many of us have to start getting our shit together collectively to switch?
That's a good question.
Do you feel like it has to be like everybody, or does it have to be a small portion of people in order to start shifting the wheel a little bit?
I think I remember, I'm a big history buff. I think I remember reading that only 2% of the population in America were all gung-ho for the revolution.
2% of people.
Yeah. Some people want to say in England. Some people just wanted to have their states. It was a big experiment. And you kind of see that right now. We see not the smartest people, not the most organized people, but the loudest people causing the most change in the world. I'll be loud and I will scream you into subservience. And that's a small percentage. So I don't think it takes 50%. I think it takes I think about it like if I'm peeking in somewhere, right? Let's say there's 50 people in this room, and I kind of open the door and I look out, and then everyone sees me look out, and then another guy behind me looks out. Everyone's gonna start walking to the door, and they're like, "What's out there? What's going on over here? Let me take a peek."
I see what you're saying.
I'd say if one, I'm using one metaphorically,
right?
But if one person gets out there, a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, thank you for doing that. I really need you to do that." Because now I can feel more comfortable knowing that there's somebody else out there.
Yeah, right.
That feels the same way I do. And you can form that community. I think that the pebble droppers are probably more than we think are.
I agree.
But they're quiet.
Yeah.
And right now, the loudest people in our society are usually the stupidest, usually the most mentally ill, and should not be given life advice about anything. But they're the loudest. So people are like, okay, stop yelling at me.
Yeah.
Or to just ignore them, which if you ignore them, it just gets festered and it will grow because you waited too long to contain it.
Yeah.
So keep on dropping pebbles and get people in community where you're dropping boulders.
That's true.
And you're creating big change. You're creating big waves.
Yeah.
You have your gym. I think that's a big part of it.
Start local, right?
Start local. Start with yourself.
Start with yourself.
Start with your family.
We all model. Paul Chek talks about that too.
Yeah.
Because you can't give to the we and to the all if you don't give to yourself first or fuel yourself first.
Absolutely.
Because that can be.
Jordan Peterson talks about that all the time. Like, make your bed, become the best person that you can, carry the burden that you can carry the most.
Yeah,
and people will look at you and they say, okay, that person carries that burden, and then you can be an example, and then you can do that because you take care of yourself. You can take care of other people. So you take care of your family, you take care of a significant other, you take care of children, then you take care of your community. I'm good at stopping at my community. Like, I am all about local. I'm all about like being around people who are trying to help each other versus someone who I might not have any value system that aligns, you know, on the East Coast or West Coast that is talking out of their ass. Like, we don't have anything aligned. Yeah. So if you're just going to yell at me, I'm not going to do that either. So I'll just retreat into my community. And I think you find happiness there.
I agree. It's a good place to start for sure. That was a really fast 90-minute conversation. Can you believe that?
Oh, wow.
6 o'clock. Yeah, dude. I think that we probably should have done this a few more times before the last day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'll close this out. But I will say that, like I said, I've only known you for a short amount of time. But I do get what all your clients are saying about like how sad they are that you're leaving because, you know, you're a really knowledgeable dude. You bring a lot of like good positive vibes to a space and like you bring good people in and I'm appreciative of that. Like I've learned so much. You've inspired me a shit ton. So I'll conclude with that. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you always have a home here. I will say that too. And you always have a friend in me, so if you ever need anything, bro, like that's always going to be on the table. So I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
This was awesome.